He'll reset. Nowitzki again for the lead. Bang!
What's up, Mavs fans? Welcome into All Things Mavs. I'm your host, as always, Jimmy Crowther, breaking down all the latest happenings about your Dallas Mavericks. And as you guys can see, I'm back in the home studio, and today I'm previewing the Mavs game versus the Indiana Pacers, which is taking place on Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Central Time. A little bit of an earlier tip-off for this game, and you know what? This is a good chance for the Dallas Mavericks to finally get back on track. But it's not going to be easy because this Pacers team is pretty darn good, and the Mavs are once again going to be without 4 players. It's not 5, it's not 6 this time, but it's at least 4. Maxi Kleber, Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Dwight Powell have all been listed as out on the latest NBA injury report for the Dallas Mavericks, which is obviously unfortunate, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm going to break down when I think we might see these guys back on the court for the Mavs here in just a little bit. But this is going to be the 6th straight game for the Mavs without Richardson, without Dorian Finney-Smith. Obviously, they got Jalen Brunson back in the game against the Raptors. He actually looked really, really strong in his return, but it still wasn't enough as the Mavs fell to Toronto. This will also be the 5th straight game for the Mavs without Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell, which honestly, Maxi's probably a little bit more important than some of those other guys that are out in this game, and I would really, really like him back for this game against Indiana, but obviously it's not going to happen. Now, since losing their players after the Denver game, Dallas is 2-3 in those games, so could be worse, but could be a lot better. However, the Mavs are not the only team in this matchup with a long injury report. The Indiana Pacers also have a pretty long list of injuries as well. As you guys probably know, Caris LeVert and TJ Warren are both out indefinitely. Caris LeVert had a mass on his kidney that was removed. He said, if it weren't for the trade, he probably wouldn't have known about that, so thank goodness for that, but he will not be in this. Remember, he was traded from Brooklyn to, from Brooklyn to Houston, then from Houston to Indiana in the Victor Oladipo trade. He hasn't played yet for the Pacers, and there's no really telling when he will play, which sucks for me because he's on my fantasy team, but good for the Dallas Mavericks because he'd probably be their best scorer outside of Domantas Sabonis, who we'll talk about here in a minute. TJ Warren also out indefinitely. He has been out for a long time. He has a stress fracture in his left foot. He will be out for a good chunk of this season. Now, they also are listing Jeremy Lamb as questionable. Jeremy Lamb has not played yet this year for the Pacers. He's recovering from a torn ACL. And then JaKarr Sampson has missed one game. He missed it against the Clippers. And then he's listed as questionable for this game as well. But the one guy that's most important in this list, it's not Caris LeVert, it's not TJ Warren, it's Myles Turner. Myles Turner popped up on the injury report early Tuesday morning, and they feared that he suffered a broken hand. Now, it wasn't a full break. They called it a right hand avulsion fracture. It's a really fancy name for some kind of fracture in your hand. And originally he was going to be out 3 to 4 weeks. He was definitely going to miss this game. And then he got more tests on it. Turns out he's going to be questionable for this game. And there's a chance that he might actually end up playing. Now, I'd be surprised to see him playing, and honestly, it'd be a good thing for the Mavs if he didn't because he's been terrific this year. He's averaging 12 points per game and 7 rebounds. Nothing incredible, but the thing that stands out is he's leading the league in blocks per game at 4.2. Now, he's not shooting the ball really well from 3, but that's kind of beside the point because if you guys have been watching the Dallas Mavericks, you know that their front line could use quite a bit of help. Obviously, Kristaps Porzingis is back, and that's huge, and it would be really helpful for Kristaps Porzingis if he could find a rhythm without Myles Turner there in the middle. And then also Willie Cauley-Stein. Look, you guys know I've loved Cauley-Stein from the beginning. You know I have clamored for him to start over Dwight Powell since the beginning of the season, but there's times where he looks softer than Charmin Ultra Soft. I mean, seriously, the guy sometimes just gets bullied around and looks like he doesn't know that he's 7 feet tall. It's very, very weird, and he looks like he's almost scared to pick up a foul. He's one of those guys where I'm like, going into the game, I'd say, I'd be happier if Willie Cauley-Stein fouled out of this game than if he came out of this game with 0 fouls, because at least he'd be being aggressive, but not the case. And so if Cauley-Stein, or if Myles Turner doesn't play, it could be good for both Willie Cauley-Stein and Kristaps Porzingis. Now, Indiana's already had one game without Myles Turner in the lineup, and it was that last game against the Los Angeles Clippers. They got blown out 129-96, and their starting 5 was Malcolm Brogdon, Edmund Sumner, Justin Holiday, the late, great Dallas Maverick Doug McDermott, and then Domantas Sabonis. So, Brogdon, I love him. He's one of my favorite non-Mavericks in the league. Doug McDermott is one of the best shooters in the league. He scored 23 points in that loss to the Los Angeles Clippers. Justin Holiday is a good two-way player, but he's nothing incredible. Edmund Sumner, honestly, I can't even tell you what he brings to the table as a player, but the guy that does worry me, no matter what, is Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis has been playing out of this world this year. He's averaging 22 points per game, 13 rebounds, 6 assists. He's shooting 31% from 3 on 2 attempts per game. And besides that 3-point percentage, he's averaging career highs across the board. And Sabonis is a guy that Kristaps Porzingis is probably going to have to check. And Sabonis is a little bit more physical down low. He's more of a power kind of, like a real true power forward, whereas Kristaps Porzingis is more of that finesse kind of power forward. And so this could be a difficult matchup on the defensive end for Kristaps Porzingis, but he's going to have to be kept in check. And if Willie Cauley-Stein starts this game, I'm even more scared. Because without Myles Turner, let's say there is no Myles Turner and Cauley-Stein starts the game, I get worried. Because this is kind of how Cauley-Stein defends. It's really, I mean, in all honesty, he gets beat a lot down low. I saw a play where Kyle Lowry drove on him, and, Cauley-Stein had his arms straight up, and if his arms are straight up, he's basically touching the rim. But Kyle Lowry gave him the slightest little shove, and Willie Cauley-Stein went flying. So if that's Domantas Sabonis instead of Kyle Lowry, I'm a little bit worried. And so here's my proposal, okay? This is going to kind of take a little shift, all right? If Myles Turner is out of this game, and the Pacers go small again with basically Doug McDermott at power forward, I think it's time to throw James Johnson into the starting 5. Take a different approach and see what James Johnson can do. Because if James Johnson, or if Willie Cauley-Stein and Porzingis are in there, either Cauley-Stein or Porzingis are going to have a mismatch with Doug McDermott, and that's going to be a problem on the defensive end. Offensively, it might work out okay, but if James Johnson is in there, he can keep up with basically all 5 positions. And so my hope for the starting 5, I don't know if it'll happen. In fact, it's not even probable at this point. But I would like to see Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, who has been really good as a starter for the Dallas Mavericks this year, not great off the bench, great as a starter. Tim Hardaway Jr., who is probable in this game despite that groin strain. James Johnson, and then Kristaps Porzingis. And now, listen, I get it, and you guys know I love James Johnson a lot. I really do. He's had a couple boneheaded plays, right? There's some times where he passes the ball too much, he's turnover prone, he takes some shots he shouldn't. But at the end of the day, and he's playing about 25 minutes per game right now. That's going to go way down when guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Maxi are back in the lineup. But right now, off the bench, he's been really good. Since the Mavs lost those guys after the Denver game, James Johnson is averaging 11.4 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.4 blocks, 1.2 steals. He's shooting 33% from 3 and 56% from the field. Listen, go ahead and pencil in like 1.5 turnovers per game. He's either going to have at least 1, I would say up to 2 per game. And they're going to be really maddening, and they're going to be those plays that just make you want to pull your hair out. But when James Johnson is good, he's really good. And if the Pacers are going to go small without Myles Turner in the lineup, throw James Johnson in there. And then let Willie Cauley-Stein come off the bench for the Dallas Mavericks. That kind of alleviates really Boban having to play any minutes in this game. And in all honesty, I'd like to see Cauley-Stein coming off the bench behind James Johnson just for a game like this. Now, if Myles Turner starts, just scrap everything I said. If Myles Turner plays, scrap everything I said and roll with the starting 5 of Luka, Jalen Brunson, Tim Hardaway, KP, and Willie Cauley-Stein. But if not, move KP to the 5 and move James Johnson to the 4. Now, the other kind of individual I want to focus on, I'm going to focus on 3 different individuals. First one was James Johnson. Now I want to talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. Because I think a lot of people were frustrated when he came back in that Toronto game, and they were questioning, hey, is it a good idea to really start this guy? Shouldn't we bring him off the bench again? Not with all these players out. And I know he was terrible against Toronto. He was 0 of 12 from the field. He had 0 points. But here's the deal. Tim Hardaway was still clearly struggling with that groin strain. It was still clearly bothering him in Toronto. And there's a reason that he didn't play on the first night of a back-to-back, and they kind of forced him, or he forced himself probably, to play on the second night of a back-to-back. It's because the Mavs needed him. It wasn't a severe strain, and there's no further risk of injury. It's just, you need your best players out there. Now, he didn't really help the team at all. I don't even, it's kind of a neutral thing. Like, if he wasn't in there, it probably would have been Josh Green or Wes Iwundu, and at that point, is that any better than Tim Hardaway going 0 of 12? I don't know. But Tim Hardaway will get an extra day of rest tonight, on Tuesday night as you're watching this, and then Wednesday, he'll turn around. He's listed as probable. I think we'll get closer to what we're used to, 15 point per game, Tim Hardaway Jr., and everyone can kind of be okay. The third individual I do want to talk about is Kristaps Porzingis. Like, obviously, I could talk about Luka. Look, you can see it on my shirt. I can talk about him all day, every day. He's my favorite player in the world to watch right now. But we know what we're going to get out of Luka Doncic. Didn't get the same version of him in Toronto. We'll get him back in Indiana. But Porzingis, I know he had a rough game in the second one. But against Toronto, I don't think enough people talked about. I know I didn't, because I didn't even do a post-game show because I was on the road. But Porzingis was really good. I watched the game back, 23 points and 9 rebounds. He also had 2 blocked shots. He's had 2 blocked shots in every single game since he's been in. But the most encouraging part of that game was not necessarily in the box score. It was the fact that he played on the second night of a back-to-back and played well on the second night of a back-to-back, which encourages me going forward. This is a guy who is just coming back from, a torn meniscus, and he was preparing to be able to ramp up a little bit longer than he was. And then the NBA was like, no, we're going to start earlier than anyone expected in December. So he wasn't prepared to come back that fast. Give him about a week of playing time, and we're going to see bubble Porzingis back. He's not there yet, but he's getting closer. And I think this Indiana game, if there's no Myles Turner, could be an excellent opportunity for him to really show what he's made of. Because last year, the Mavs played Indiana twice. Porzingis had 2 very different games against the Pacers back in the 2019-2020 season. They both came in the second half of the year in February and in March. In February, his first game against the Pacers, which Myles Turner and Sabonis both did play in, he had 38 points and 12 rebounds. He shot 6 of 13 from 3, and there was no Luka Doncic in that game. That was one of the games that Luka sat out, and Porzingis basically carried the team for a week or 2 at a time. I can't remember how long it was. I think it was like a 2-week stretch. But then the second game was March 8th, which was 2 games before the NBA shut down. He only had 9 points, but he did have 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, but he had 4 turnovers. So we're going to get one of 2 versions of Porzingis. Either we're going to get closer to, I'm not saying he's going to score 38, probably won't even score 30, but we're either going to get closer to 38 and 12 or 9 and 8. I'd rather have 38 and 12. I think this could be a good game for Porzingis if there's no Myles Turner. He's got a good chance to really prove himself. I loved what I saw out of him in Toronto, and I think we're going to get closer and closer to bubble Porzingis. Let's not give up on him too fast, y'all. Some of you guys have been already firing up the trade machine for Porzingis. I think that's crazy. I want this guy to be a Maverick until he retires. That's my take on it, and I think he will be. We just got to be patient. Now, Dallas is honestly, look, Rick Carlisle called it a death stretch of games, basically, because it's probably the toughest stretch in Mavs history without any of their players available right now. And this will be their 8th game in 14 days. They haven't had 2 days off of rest in I don't even know how long, and they won't get 2 days off of rest until February 17th when they play the Detroit Pistons. So the Mavs are either playing back-to-backs or they get one night off and then they play again. It's a tough stretch, and honestly, we're just going to have to buckle in. And my phrase, my catchphrase for this, stretch without our guys, it's embrace the suck. You can put the hashtag down in the comments. Hashtag embrace the suck, because that's what it is. Now, give you some light at the end of the tunnel here, and I'll talk about those guys that could be back. 2 weeks, 14 days from the time that everyone tested positive in Denver would be the 22nd, which is the Mavs game, next game after this Pacers game. That would be Friday against the San Antonio Spurs. So we could potentially see Josh Richardson cleared and Dorian Finney-Smith cleared. Now, Maxi and Dwight are a different story. I can't even really speculate when they might return, but it could be a little bit. It's going to be a little bit later than these other guys. Now, here's the only thing I want to mention. Everybody's quarantine right now is very, very different. Right? Because we don't know, I think these guys have tested negative, but we don't know for sure. For example, sure, you can say 10 to 14 days. I know that's what the CDC says. That's fine. I had it. I didn't get a positive test result or a negative test result until 20 days after I started my quarantine. I was stuck in quarantine watching Parks and Rec for literally 20 days. So I don't know what it's going to be like for these guys. And also if they're showing symptoms, I don't know what the recovery process is going to look like for those guys. So best case scenario, they return on Friday against the San Antonio Spurs. Worst case scenario is a big, I don't know, shrug emoji at this point. But I'm holding out hope that they can return Friday night against San Antonio, and we'll just have to wait and see. We're just going to have to hang tight. And like I said, hashtag embrace the suck. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you guys. That means you're probably already a loyal subscriber. If you're not, I hope you liked what you saw. Go ahead and hit that big red button and subscribe. One thing that I've been trying to do really lately on this channel is be able to respond to as many comments as possible. And someone was like, why do you do that? Well, you guys take the time to watch and comment. I'm going to take the time to sit down and respond to your comments. And with that being said, I want to ask you guys a question. And if you're in the comments right now, if you've made it this far, I need you to listen to this part so that I can get your input. I'm thinking about making a Patreon page. And basically what Patreon would do would unlock basically extra bonuses of all things Mavs for you guys for $3 to $15 a month. And each money amount would basically unlock a different tier, whether it's a couple extra videos a day, a Q&A, a couple live streams, whatever it may be. Also, access to all things Mavs merchandise on Patreon. But I haven't decided if I'm going to set that up yet. If that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know in the comment section. If you're like, no way, don't do that, let me know. Either way, it wouldn't take away from what I'm doing here on YouTube. I'd always keep these videos free. Don't you guys worry. I'll never make you pay for anything. But it's something that, hey, if you want to support me some more and you want to see some bonus content, I might open that up. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Mavs, Pacers, tomorrow night, 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. I'll have the recap for you here on All Things Mavs. I'm excited. I'm hoping they can get a win. I'm tired of this 3-game losing streak, so we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. And as always, go Mavs, baby.